Okay, this is section 4 on slope. If you look at these three graphs, we can compare and contrast. So if we look, two of the graphs have b values of 2. So that means they cross the y-intercept y-axis at 2. We know that one of the graphs has a b value of -6. One of the graphs is positive, and two of the graphs are negative. Something that they all have the same, though, is that their domain is from -infinity to infinity for all three of them, and the range is from -infinity to infinity for all three of them. Another thing is that they are all a straight line. They are linear. All three of these graphs represent linear relationships. So for a linear function, I'm going to cross this off. A linear function is written as a constant rate of change and is in the form y equals mx plus b, which should be similar to something you learned your freshman year in Algebra 1 or in formal algebra, and you also would have worked with it in geometry a little bit. We know that the constant rate of change is actually our slope, which is just constant rate of change as x increases y increases at the same rate. And it's not always an increase, sometimes it's a decrease, but it's always at the same rate. So it's always going to be the same number every time. So it's going to add 3 each time, go down by half each time. It's that same rate every time. So linear equations, graphs, or functions differ by their slope, which we just described. Slope is your steepness and your direction of a line, and your y-intercepts, which I pointed out above, your b value, is where your line crosses y-axis. And slope, that is your m. In your equation, y equals ms plus b. M is your slope, b is your y-intercept. Okay, pause the video if you're not done writing. If you're done writing, we're going to keep going. So, to calculate slope, you need just 2 points. So m is your slope, and m represents your rise over your run. So rise is your y value, so y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And that's just using your 2 points and plugging it in. So that part you should be familiar with. It's also your change in y over your change in x. So with your graphs, for positive slope, that's when your line increases as your x increases. So as x increases, y increases. It's going up. Negative is when your y values decrease. So your line will go down. A slope of 0 is when you have a horizontal line. Horizontal, think horizon, it's flat. So that's a slope of 0. And a slope of undefined is when you have a vertical line. So there is no slope. So if we were to write these as fractions, this would be as a over b. Negative would be a negative a over b. A slope of 0 would be 0 over b. And undefined would be a slope of 0 over, or a over 0. So see how that 0 is on the bottom? That's undefined. When it's 0 on top, that's just 0. So think in your calculator, if you did 0 over 2, whoops, 0 over 2, that's just 0. If you had 2 over 0, that would be an error or undefined. So in our graphs, we're going to calculate the slope. So when you have a graph, you're going to use rise over run for your m. So in example 1, between 2 points, if we're rising, so we're going up and over. So we're going up 4 over 2. So our m is a rise of 4, a run of 2, which reduces down just to 2. So this is a slope of 2. Okay. Example number 2. Again, between 2 of our points, and you can pick any 2 just to draw your triangle. So this is a rise of negative 1 because it's going down, and a run of 3. You're running to the right. So our m is negative 1 over 3. And that doesn't reduce at all, so that's our final answer. Number 3, it is a vertical line. So our m is undefined, and I use UND, that undefined, as an abbreviation. Number 4, we have a horizontal line. So our m is 0, the slope is 0. Okay, from the given ordered pairs, calculate the slope. So when we're calculating our slope with pairs, we're going to use that equation. So your m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So in example number 7, we have x1, y1, x2, y2, and we're just plugging it into that slope formula. So m is equal to 12 minus 10, y2 minus y1, 12 minus 10, over x2 minus x1, so 7 minus 5. So we have 2 over 2. If you reduce that fraction, that is just 1. Number 8, again, first thing is go ahead and label these points, x1, y1, x2, y2. See how each point has an x and a y, x and a y? The 1s are together at one point, 2s are together at the next point. So our m equals 10 minus 5 over 2 minus negative 3. See how the negative 3 is right here? And the minus is from our formula. 10 minus 5 is 5. 2 minus negative 3, those two negatives become a positive, so this becomes positive 5. 5 over 5 is just, again, 1. Reduces to 1. Next one, we have x1, y1, x2, y2. So our m is 9 minus 9 over negative 5 minus 1. 9 minus 9 is 0 over negative 5 minus negative 1, which is negative 6. If you put that in your calculator, 0 on top actually reduces down to 0. So 0 divided by negative 6 is 0. If we were to graph this, it would be a horizontal line. Okay, number 10. So we have x1, y1, x2, y2. So our m is 3 minus negative 4. Negative 4 is right here, so don't forget your negative. That's the biggest thing kids mess up in, is putting the points in the formula. They forget the negative from the formula, or they'll forget the negative from the point, but that's where kids make mistakes on slope. Another mistake they make is that they flip the points around, so make sure your x's are always on the bottom. So we have 3 plus 4, which is 7. Negative 14 plus 7, which is negative 7. 7 over negative 7 just turns into negative 1. So make sure you're reducing your fractions. Okay? In your calculator, if you type this in, it will reduce for you. So that's why I've been talking about you guys using them and knowing how to use them, understanding how to use them, because it's a tool to help you. Okay? Next one, we have x1, y1, x2, y2. You're going to see me label my points every single time. That way no mistakes are made. Negative 8 minus 12 over 18 minus 2. This becomes negative 20 over 18 minus 2, positive 16. If you reduce this fraction, both of these can be divided by 4. So divide by 4, we get negative 5 over 4. Okay, last one for our video. x1, y1, x2, y2. So m, our slope, is equal to 1 minus 5 over negative 2 minus a negative 2. 1 minus 5 is negative 4. On the bottom, these negatives turn into a positive. So we have negative 2 plus 2, which actually ends up being 0. If you put this in your calculator, you get an error, which means this is undefined. This would be a vertical line. Okay, and that is the end of notes for today.